Hi, everybody. Good to see you back. So, we're gonna learn another grade 9 episode of learning. Anyway, today we'll be doing history for grade 9, obviously. It's lesson 1, and it's also part 1. The topic for today's lesson is capture of coastal areas of Sri Lanka by the Dutch. This is part 1, but stay tuned for part 2. Anyway, let's get started with the lesson. Introduction. The Kandyan kings realized they needed strong naval power to defeat the Portuguese, who controlled the coastal area of Sri Lanka. King Rajasingha II sought help from the Dutch to drive them out. Although the Dutch helped to defeat the Portuguese, they broke their agreement with the king and took control of the coastal regions. By 1658, the Dutch had established their rule, which continued until 1796. Now, how did the Dutch just pop up in Asia? Well, in the 16th century, the Dutch were engaged in the trade of buying at the Lisbon harbor in Portugal the spices and other commodities that were brought by the Portuguese from Asia and selling them in European countries. Holland, the motherland of the Dutch, was at that time a colony of Spain. The Spanish were Roman Catholics and the Dutch were Protestants. Hence, there existed religious controversies between these two nations. The Dutch, therefore, began to rebel against the Spanish for winning independence. Meanwhile, Prince Philip II, who became the King of Spain, also inherited the kingship of Portugal and got the opportunity to work against the Dutch. Consequently, King Philip II prohibited the Dutch to arrive at the Lisbon harbor, since the Dutch ships could not enter the Lisbon harbor for the Dutch to get spices and other commodities they needed for their trade. They had no alternative other than reaching Asia where spices and such other commodities were produced. Well, our good old boys, the Portuguese tried to keep the sea routes to Asia a secret and not allowed other people to find out, but somehow they did find out. Let's see how. The Portuguese tried to keep the sea routes to Asia a secret and did not allow other Europeans to travel with them. However, by 1595, the Dutch discovered these routes using spies and other methods. By 1602, several Dutch trading companies had reached Asia, but competition among them caused problems. To solve this, the Dutch united them into the Dutch East India Company, VOC, which was given authority to trade, conquer lands, build forts, and rule territories. The VOC became powerful and established its headquarters in Batavia, expanding its control in Asia. In doing so, the Dutch had to fight against the Portuguese. Now, let's see how dumb our Kandyan kings were. Well, technically, only one of our Kandyan kings. That was King Vimaladharma Surya. In 1602, Dutch Admiral Joris van Spilbergen arrived on the eastern coast of Sri Lanka with 3 ships and landed at Batticaloa. He then travelled to Kandy and was met with King Vimaladharma Surya I. At that time, the king was highly disappointed with Portuguese. The king agreed to seek Dutch help to drive out the Portuguese. A few months later, a Dutch delegation led by Sebald de Wreet met King Vimaladharma Surya I, who welcomed them and discussed plans for cooperation. However, a dispute arose due to Sebald's disrespectful behavior, leading to his death. As a result, the king abandoned his hopes of the Dutch support. After his reign, King Senerath held discussion with the Dutch, but they were unsuccessful. Well, seems like King Vimaladharma Surya wasn't so dumb at all. But too bad for Sebald. And this is when the dumbness really arose. the treaty between King Rajasingha II and the Dutch. After King Senarath's reign, his son, King Rajasingha II, came to power and was determined to defeat the Portuguese. He sought Dutch to support and negotiate with their headquarters in Batavia. The king agreed to give the Dutch control of the cinnamon trade and harbour in the east in return for their help. Together, they attacked the Portuguese fort in Batticaloa and successfully defeated them. Following this victory, King Rajasingha II signed an agreement with Dutch in May 1638. Well, seems like they're going really well, but afterwards it's not going to go so well. Key points of the 1638 treaty. The Dutch agreed to support the King of Kandy to drive the Portuguese from the country. The king agreed to settle by the way of providing the Dutch with commodities such as cinnamon, pepper, and beeswax for the amount that the Dutch would spend on battles against the Portuguese, granting the Dutch the monopoly of collecting commodities from the Kandyan areas except for the elephants, agreeing to deploy, if the king wishes to do so, the Dutch army at the fortress that would be captured from the Portuguese. So that's all for today, guys. Make sure to put a like and a comment down below and don't forget to subscribe. Please do not forget to subscribe. I'm telling this a lot, but it is the truth. You are not subscribing. And anywho, it's time for me to go and have a nap, I guess. But stay tuned for my next video, which I will be posting very soon. So until then, bye.